What's up, fellow music nerds? Matrix here, and you are locked into the Matrix Music Review Podcast, the only place to get your fix for country and alternative music, and we are here for an alternative episode. Definitely going to be on the shorter side this week just because of the amount of albums that we had in the past couple of weeks. Don't have too many to talk about, but we're going to jump into those albums, definitely review a lot of the singles that have been out in the past couple of weeks, and then we got a tour or two to announce as well. As always, if you like what I'm doing over here at Matrix Music Review, head on over to Instagram and Twitter and give us a follow at Matrix Music Review. And a bonus this week is that we are now on TikTok at Matrix Music Review. So going to be posting more on there. Definitely a lot more of the playlists and just different things that I'm listening to are going to go up on there. So be sure to head on over there and follow us as well. Also, we will link all of our playlists in the description of this episode so that you can take a listen to those as well. And make sure that you're sharing this podcast with your friends so that everybody else can be up to date on what's happening in country and alternative music. With that, we are going to jump right into our album reviews this week. And the first one is the big one, and that is Intellectual Property from Waterparks. So the best way I can describe this Waterparks album is that it is such a fun album to listen to. You know, it's interesting because I like to describe their sound as very simple without being basic. And what I mean by that is there's not a whole lot of extra production. There's not a whole lot of bells and whistles behind it. It's just very simple and very pleasing to listen to. And, you know, even though we got 4 to 5 singles from this album before we got the whole thing, it just really does enhance the listening process, for me at least. You know, one of the things that I try to do, especially when we have a lot of singles that come out before albums, is I like to set kind of a cutoff date. And my cutoff date is usually once we have an album release date, I try to stop listening to singles past that, in terms of if they're releasing a new single and the album comes out in less than a month, I'm going to just wait until I can get the full experience on the album. So definitely did that here a little bit with Waterparks, but it also allowed me to kind of come back to songs that I forgot how much I enjoyed. And that is definitely true on this one. And my big one that I came back around to was Funeral Grey. And Funeral Grey is one of those fun jam songs that you can just throw on at any point in time, and it's just really going to get you up and get you moving and just really make you happy. And it's going to be a fun song to listen to, even with a title like Funeral Grey. You know, it's not a sad song at all, you know, and this is probably where I will make my bold statement about this album. And it's not so much about the album as much as it is about this artist and this band, and that is that Waterparks to me are the kings of the one-liner. So what I mean by that is that Waterparks has some of the best one-liners that I've heard in a really long time. You know, and we see it right away with Funeral Grey. You know, we get lines like, "You took that hit, blew it in my face, and said, now you're gonna die too." Or we get a line that says, "Your dying wish is to be baptized by my spit." And these are just one lines that just kind of make you sit there and go, whoa, okay. Like, it really kind of stops you in your track and you can kind of picture some of these things. You know, it's the same thing going through this entire album. You know, we get a line like that in Brainwash, the next song, where it says, "Symmetrical feelings match best staring at the ceiling." And they're just so... I don't even know how to describe those one-liners because they're just so good. That's really all there is to it. The lyrics on this album are so good and so captivating that it really kind of stops you in your tracks. You know, perhaps no song has more one-liners in it than Two Best Friends, and that's probably one of my favorite songs off of this album. And in that entire song, you're getting all of these different one-liners, but some of my favorites are, "I could have picked your body out of a lineup," or "You made my heart feel like a handbag." You know, different things like that. It's kind of unique to see, especially as this genre evolves. We've definitely kind of gotten this renaissance underway in terms of kind of going back to its roots a little bit. And it's nice to see a band like Waterparks really lean in and give us some of those different creative lyrics that we kind of have become accustomed to in this genre and become accustomed to from bands that we've loved. And I think that's why Waterparks is so successful and so relatable for people, is because they have those types of one-liners that really draw people in. But it's not just these fun, creative lyrics that make this album so great. It's also the balance that you get from this album. You have those 3 songs where you go from Funeral Grey, Brainwashed, and Two Best Friends, and then you dive into a song like Ritual, which is a little bit on the heavier side. You get some screams in there, you get a little bit more heaviness, and that song itself, you get some hip-hop vibes in there, you get some electronic vibes in there. It's a little bit more of a creative song on the musical side, not just in the lyrical side. So it's such a balanced, fun song. And, I can go track by track for this album just about how awesome it is. The Black Bear feature, that's something I don't know that I was expecting to hear Black Bear on a Waterparks album, but I'm glad that I did. And, another one in that is When We Fight, It's Like a Marathon. And I think everybody can relate to a statement like that, especially if you're in a relationship. Sometimes when you get in fights, it does feel like a marathon where you just keep going and going and going. And then you also get songs like Closer, where it's kind of a stripped back version of Waterparks, and it's more of a internal looking song where we're looking more at what we're feeling and how we're feeling in the moment and how you wanted to feel in that moment. And that one was an Austin solo write. And I love that he does have a few solo writes on here. I think his writing style is so unique and so cool to actually dive into. And that's why I look at song credits. That's why I look at, all the different production notes and things like that. That's the music nerd side of me coming out when I look into the lyrics and look into who wrote it, because I feel like you can really understand what somebody's going through and feel how they feel, and it makes it that much more relatable. When I see a song that is a solo write from Austin on this, I know that there's no other person involved, and I know that it's him speaking how he feels and speaking his truth. And I love that. I love that we have a lot of solo writes on here. And Closer is really a song that obviously you guys can tell that I've connected with. And it's one of those songs where, it does strip it back, but you still get all of those themes that you've come to know and love in pop punk. And, it's one of those songs that really reminds me why I love the genre so much and why I have connected to it so much over the years. It's always been one of my favorite genres. It's always been one of my favorite things. But, hearing songs like Funeral Grey, hearing songs like Closer, and then, getting even further into, other bands that have released songs or released albums that have really kind of brought this renaissance back to the forefront. And honestly, bands like Waterparks makes pop punk cool again. I'm hoping that everybody's starting to see that, and maybe even the younger generations are starting to recognize that this isn't just some fad, and this isn't just something that's on TikTok or anything like that. This is real art, and this is something that you can connect to. So I loved this whole Intellectual Property record. It's one that's gonna continuously be in rotation for me this year. And I think you guys can tell that this is one of those records that I'm really excited about and really amped up about. And records like this, when they come along, really remind me why I love alternative so much. And, it's one of those things where not everybody's going to always understand alternative or pop punk or whatever you want to call this genre of music. But there is so many people out there that really connect with this and get an album like Intellectual Property, and it's just so wonderful and refreshing, and it really brings you back to that spot where that's why you fell in love with this genre. So Intellectual Property by Waterparks, I'm going to stop going on about it, and I just want you guys to go ahead and go check it out. Next album I want to talk about is Don't Mind If We Do by Bowling for Soup. Now look, Bowling for Soup is a band that's been around forever. Everybody knows them from 1985 and High School Never Ends and, different songs like that. Those were their big popular ones. So everybody knows that Bowling for Soup is their own band. They kind of do their own thing, and that could not be more true on this album. It's mostly a cover album, but the first song is really why I wanted to talk about this album at all, and that is that we have a song on there called Hey Mario, and it is so fantastically creative that I couldn't not talk about it on the podcast. So Hey Mario is exactly what you would imagine it when you turn it on and you get Super Mario Brothers themes playing in the background. Basically, this whole song is about Mario needing to get his shit together and stop messing around with Peach, because why does she keep putting herself in these situations if she really cares about you? She'd be with you at this point if she actually felt the same. Just get your shit together, bro, is basically the tagline in it. And, it's so cool to hear video game references and video games being incorporated into music. I think they go hand in hand a lot of times, but we don't always get, the sound effects from video games in there. And this song is just littered with video games sounds, and I love it. So if you haven't heard Hey Mario yet, go give it a listen. I think you guys will actually enjoy it. But overall, this album was fine. I mean, there really wasn't much to talk about with it. It's like I said, it's a cover album, so it's kind of hard to get into. The one thing that was kind of interesting to me was that they covered Erase Me by Kid Cudi, and that's one of my favorite songs from back when I was in high school. And so to hear it again from a pop punk group was definitely a little surprising. But Don't Mind If We Do by Bowling for Soup, go give it a listen. Next up, we got Alter 74 from 93 Feet of Smoke. So a newer artist to me, and this is one of those albums, like I mentioned earlier, that I really just didn't get to spend enough time with. It's an interesting album. It's definitely what modern alternative is, and it's definitely the trend that we've seen, especially with, the likes of Machine Gun Kelly and Lil Huddy and Jaden and people like that. But it's definitely one of those albums that I enjoyed the first half more than the second half. It was really strong production-wise, which I was kind of surprised. I thought maybe I wouldn't like some of that type of production. But I did really enjoy the song when they're Stuck in the Middle. And, he basically says, I fight for everyone but me. And that line really stood out to me because I feel like a lot of times people can feel like that you are constantly people pleasing or constantly just fighting for everyone but yourself. You're going to fight for everybody else to feel better, everybody else to feel important, but at the end of the day, you're not fighting for yourself, so it's going to drag you down a little bit. That was probably one of my favorites, as well as Conversations, which I think was a single that was released not that long ago. So I want to spend a little bit more time with it. It is definitely worth a listen. I only got to listen to it all the way through probably once, and so I don't want to give too much of a review on it completely until I get to spend some more time with it. But Alter 74 by 93 Feet of Smoke, go check it out. And the last album that I want to talk about is Baku's Revenge, the deluxe version. So as you guys know, I am a big Magnolia Park fan, a big Magnolia Park believer, and this deluxe version doesn't do anything to knock that down. I am still such a fan of this band. I think they are one of those bands that's really on the cusp of breaking out on the mainstream level. I think they have so much talent behind them and so much momentum behind them at this point that they're really on the edge of breaking into mainstream, whether that's radio, whether that is, playing bigger shows. I mean, when I saw them, I got to see them kind of like in a little hole in the wall bar on their Baku's Revenge tour, which it's a bigger venue, but I can see them playing, even bigger spots, maybe some bigger ballrooms or even potentially, outdoor amphitheaters. I think that would be a great spot for them to go to next. But either way, Baku's Deluxe is adding 4 songs onto the original album, We get songs like Face Down, which I've already talked about on the podcast. So if you want to check out my review of Face Down, head back a couple episodes, you'll catch it there. Complicated is kind of a nice change-up song for me. It's not my favorite Magnolia Park song, but I do enjoy when you get a lot of the mixture in terms of the vocals on that one. Obviously, Don't Be Racist has been out for a while now. I am ecstatic that they put it on Baku's Revenge. I kind of thought that it was going to be on there originally. I think it would have been a killer track to include initially, but the fact that you're putting it on as a deluxe version is still incredible. I think that song is so important and so incredible. There's not much I can say about that track other than it's just incredible. If you haven't heard it yet, you need to go listen to it. I'll add it to the playlist so that you guys can hear it on there. But Dizzy really stood out to me because it almost sounds to me like it's a slower side of Magnolia Park. And I'm not saying that the song itself is slow. It's just more of a scaled back version of what they are and what they do normally. And it sounds to me kind of like a great set list cleanser for when they're in their show where they want to, scale it back a little bit before they jump right back into some of their heavier electric guitars, really driving beats. But I loved Dizzy. I thought it was a really cool change up and a really cool way to kind of end that deluxe album where we get this slower, softer side, but we still have the same angst and the same, lyrical composition from Magnolia Park on that. So really can't say enough good things about Magnolia Park. I wish I could do a whole Baku's Revenge review for you guys, but it's been way too long since that album's been out, and you don't want to hear me talk about that album for probably 30, 40 minutes is what I could go on about it for. So Baku's Revenge, the deluxe version, go check it out. All right, so that wraps up our albums for the week, but we still have a bunch of singles to talk about, and the first one that I want to talk about is Melancholia by Dollskin. So Dollskin is a new band to my radar. Excited to hear more from them. This is a very rockin' song that has a really cool lyric in it that says, "Waves of depression ebbs and flows like an ocean." And anybody out there that is living with that can completely agree that definitely happens. You never know when it's going to come back up or where it's going to rear its ugly head, but it does kind of ebb and flow like an ocean. So really excited to hear more from Dollskin. So Melancholia from Dollskin, go give it a listen. Next up, we have A Crooked Melody from Holding Absence. And again, the theme of the podcast this week has definitely been lyrics, and more lyrics. And we got another great one from Holding Absence on this one. And it is, "If I lie myself to sleep tonight, it'll all be all right." And, that was such an interesting lyric to me because you can take that so many different ways where, you're going to tell yourself that you're going to be okay, but the only way that you're able to sleep is if you lie to yourself. And, that's definitely something that people have gone through. I know that that's something that's relatable for a lot of people. So really cool to hear different lines like that. Those are the types of things that really stand out to me when I listen to bands that, I haven't listened to in a while, especially with like Holding Absence. So Crooked Melody from Holding Absence, go check it out. Next up, we have a song called Friends by CHEZ featuring State Champs. So my first exposure to CHEZ, obviously not my first exposure to State Champs. I thought this was a really cool collaboration, a very relatable song. I'm excited to hear more from CHEZ. So Friends from CHEZ featuring State Champs, go check it out. Next up, we have Quitter from Jutes. Now, I hope I'm saying that name right, but either way, this artist is really starting to gain some momentum, and the last couple of songs that have been put out from Jutes have really been some of my favorites. We had Punk Star with Royal and the Serpent. That was one of my favorites so far this year. And now we have Quitter, which is another great, strong track. So I think an album or an EP that comes out next is really going to make some noise. I think this artist is another one that's now kind of on my watch list to kind of blow up. So Quitter from Jutes, go check it out. Next up, we have To Me from Pinkshift. Wanted to mention this one because I think their sound is so unique, and I love that they are so unique in their sound. It's something that, makes them stand out from all the others. And it's just a song that I wanted to put on everybody's radar in case you hadn't heard it. So To Me from Pinkshift, go check it out. Next up, we have So Dumb from Teenage Bottlerocket. This is one of those songs where it's just consistent, true statements about the state of the world, and I absolutely love it. It's kind of one of those, to me, it feels like a skate punkish song, a song that we'd hear in like Tony Hawk's or something like that. But I love the statements in here. I love the sound of it. So Dumb from Teenage Bottlerocket, go check it out. Next up, we got Head in the Clouds from Arrows in Action. Now, you guys know I'm big believers in Arrows in Action, and this song is another strong entry from them. And it's definitely something a little different from them. It's a happier up-tempo song where, they just want to be happy. They want to stay in that happy state. And, I love that it's promoting these happy vibes. And I'm super stoked for their entire album. I can't wait for that one to come out. I think that's going to be one of my favorites of the year. The anticipation level is right there along with Archetypes Collide and Fall Out Boy. So Head in the Clouds from Arrows in Action. Go check it out. Next up, we got Bury Me by Late 90s. New band to me. They have a really interesting sound. I don't have much to say about the song itself. It's another band that I just want to kind of put on everybody's radar. So Late 90s, Bury Me, go check it out. Next up, we got Loser Kid 2.0 from Busted and Simple Plan. This is one of those classic songs where the message is just be nice to everybody, because you never know who that loser kid could end up being and end up becoming. And, you kind of go through that whole process throughout this song. I love Simple Plan. They're one of my favorite bands from when I was growing up and even now. So Loser Kid 2.0 by Busted and Simple Plan. Go check it out. Next up, we got Good Enough by Low Spirit. Another artist where this is my first experience this week, and I really enjoyed this sound. It's one of those sounds that it kind of caught my attention right away. I'm excited to hear more. I know there was some more in his catalog, so I definitely want to go back and listen to that a little bit, but Good Enough by Low Spirit, go check it out. And the last single this week that we're going to talk about is Danger by South Arcade. Another one of those new artists to me. It's a really solid track. I'm excited to hear more from them. I know it's been a while since we've heard from them, so Danger by South Arcade, go check it out. That wraps it up for our album and single reviews this week, but I got two tours that I want to talk about with you guys real quick. The first one being Motionless in White announcing a tour, and they are going to have support from In This Moment, Fit for a King, and From Ashes to New. That's a really heavy, hard-hitting lineup. I'm really excited to see all of them. I'm going to try to get out maybe to a show of theirs, but Motionless in White, In This Moment, Fit for a King, From Ashes to New, all going on tour together. Head on over to one of their social medias and check dates and make sure if they're coming close to you that you go check them out. And the second tour announcement is probably the most interesting one, and we got a tour announcement from All American Rejects. And that's the first time I've heard their names pop up in a while, and they are going on tour with Newfound Glory, Motion City Soundtrack, The Starting Line, and the Get Up Kids. That's a really interesting lineup. I wish they were coming a little bit closer, and I would try to go catch them because I like a lot of those bands, but All American Rejects on tour with Newfound Glory, Motion City Soundtrack, The Starting Line, and the Get Up Kids. If they're in your area, you know what to do. Go check them out. All right, guys, that wraps it up for our episode this week. Like I said, it's a little bit on the quicker side, but come back next week. We're going to have a country episode where we're going to have plenty to talk about into the country world. We definitely got some new awards nominations to talk about with that, and even some more tours and albums and all the other fun stuff that we talk about here on Matrix Music Review. In the meantime, head on over to Twitter, Instagram, and now TikTok and give us a follow at Matrix Music Review. Head over to Spotify and like both of our playlists, Control-Alt-Save as well as Keeping It Country. The Control-Alt-Save one will be linked in the description of this episode, and stay up to date on all of the fun new tracks that I'm listening to. And please be sure to share this with all of your friends. Have them go follow us on all the social medias, and let's help build this community. You know, we're a bunch of music nerds out here, and I am excited to keep connecting with everybody. And as we always do for my Spotify listeners, we're going to let you hear one of my favorites this week and have a band play us out. And this week, I thought it would be nice to have Waterparks play us out with their song Funeral Grey.